BIOBEAN here. So in the last installment of videos talking about meiosis, we're going to talk about the life cycles of plants, animals, and fungi. So let's get started. So the first life cycle that we're going to be talking about is the animal life cycle. This is one that is most familiar to us because we are animals. So let's break down this kind of complicated looking diagram here. So we start with our individuals. In this case, we're going to look at humans because we are animals, and they sit at 2N because we're a diploid species. They then undergo the process of meiosis in order to create a haploid gamete, so either a sperm or an egg, and that it only has an N value of 1. And so now that sperm or egg, through the process of fertilization, create a zygote. And so the 1N sperm and the 1N egg come together to create that 2N zygote. And then through the process of mitosis, that zygote is going to grow into a fully fledged human, and then continuing that cycle again. So this, we break it up into the diploid phase and the haploid phase based on whether that is diploid or haploid. So this is a pretty easy to understand circle of life because that's the one that we experience. So let's get into the little more complex plant and fungi life cycles. All right, so now we're going to be looking at the plant life cycle. So this one's a little bit more complex. I find they always draw this like heart-shaped thing, and I never know what they're trying to represent. So we're going to go through it in a way that hopefully is a little more clear than how it is usually presented. All right, so we're starting this process with a fully grown adult fern plant. So there's a lot of different types of ferns. They're mainly used as houseplants, or we see them a lot in the jungle. And it exists as a 2N plant. And so this fern is going to undergo meiosis, and it is going to generate spores. So these are actually spores that sit on the back of the fern leaf and then get spread through the air and go and settle in different places, either in your home or in the jungle or wherever this fern happens to be living. So then those spores, once they've been spread out into the environment, are then going to divide by mitosis to create a different plant structure than the original fern. So now it's going to create this like heart-shaped leaf, and this heart-shaped leaf is going to only be 1N. So whereas our original fern was a 2N species, this heart-shaped plant that is literally just looks like a heart-shaped leaf is going to be 1N. And so we call the fern that exists as a 2N a sporophyte, and this is because it produces spores, whereas this heart-shaped plant that exists only as 1N we call a gametophyte because it's going to go and create the gametes. So let's keep following this life cycle through. So we've had our spores created on the back of those ferns. Those are going to spread, and they are then going to undergo mitosis in order to create a new plant. So that heart-shaped plant leaf. That heart-shaped plant leaf is going to undergo mitosis and create a sperm and an egg cell. So they only need to do, so usually when you're creating a gamete, so a sperm or an egg, usually that's done with meiosis. Like in humans, we take our normal sex cells and we create gametes from them using the process of meiosis. But because this heart-shaped leaf plant is already at 1N, they don't need to divide by meiosis, because usually the whole point of meiosis is to go from a diploid to a haploid. But because they have this extra spore step here, they can create their gametes through mitosis. So that's what happens. This gametophyte plant creates the gametes, the sperm and the egg, and it does so through mitosis. Those sperm and egg cells, which are sitting at 1N, they are then going to undergo fertilization, and they are going to create our zygote. And so when that 1N sperm hits that 1N egg, it is going to create a 2N zygote. So now that 2N zygote is going to grow by mitosis, so it's going to divide using mitosis, and it is going to create our fern yet again, starting that cycle all over again. So whereas in humans, there was only a small portion that exists as a haploid, in the plant cycle, it has a much larger portion that exists as a haploid. And this is because it has this phase form of a plant, which is a haploid. So this heart-shaped plant leaf is a separate form of this fern, and it exists as a 1N plant. So this allows it to create gametes through mitosis because it already only contains one copy of each chromosome. So when we're trying to remember between what's a sporophyte and what's a gametophyte, remember that the sporophyte is the adult plant that's going to produce spores through meiosis, and the gametophyte is the 1N plant, which is like that separate plant form from the normal fern plant, and it exists as a 1N, and that is going to form our gametes. So gametophytes form gametes, and our sporophytes form spores. All right, so the next life cycle we're going to be talking about is the fungi or algae life cycle. So we're going to start over here with a mushroom, and that mushroom is going to have a coefficient of N of 1. So it's a haploid mushroom. So this haploid mushroom is going to divide by mitosis to create the gametes. And so we know that this is called the gametophyte because it's what goes on to produce our gametes. So because this gametophyte or our mushroom is a haploid, it is able to divide by mitosis in order to generate these gametes that are also haploid. So meiosis is the process of going from diploid to haploid, and so that doesn't need to happen here because we are just going from haploid to haploid. So we have created our egg and sperm. Granted, they are plant egg and sperm. And so this egg and sperm is actually sitting in the gills of the mushroom. If you've ever flipped a mushroom upside down, you see it has like all those little lines inside. This is happening inside those little lines. And so that egg and sperm are going to meet inside that little gills of the mushroom, and it is going to be fertilized into our zygote. As all zygotes are, they are 2N because they come from a 2 haploid egg and sperm, and so that is going to hit our diploid zygote. So this is our diploid phase of this life cycle. That zygote is then going to divide by meiosis in order to get a haploid spore. So this is all happening in the gill of this mushroom. So now this haploid spore has formed, and now it is going to blow away from that individual mushroom, and it is going to go and spread into the rest of the forest. Now it's going to pick a spot that it's going to land into, and it's slowly going to grow through mitosis into another full-fledged mushroom. So for both the fungi, algae, and plant life cycles, they spread through spores in order to spread across an entire forest. Then, once they've spread, they are then going to create a zygote through meiosis in order to increase that complexity and get genetic diversity. So they spread through mitosis, through those spores, in order to increase the amount of that individual plant, and then they will undergo meiosis and generate a zygote in order to increase genetic diversity, because that is a great way to fight off diseases that may occur, because if you only have one particular types of genes, you may be significantly more susceptible to a particular disease or pest than if you had a variety of different types of alleles that will maybe help protect you against those individual diseases or pests. So that concludes our video looking at the life cycles of animals, plants, and fungi and algae. If you have any questions about anything we've gone over, any questions about anything related to biology, please visit biologybean.com where you can access all of your tutoring needs. And please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe so you can continue to be updated about all the new videos that I'm posting.